Did you notice the number that is associated with today's episode? This is the 400th episode of Little by Little Homeschool podcast. What an amazing journey it has been. I started out in February, I believe it was, of 2022, and here we are at the end of September in 2025. And we've gotten there to 400 episodes. It's so exciting. At this point right now, we are at almost 750,000 downloads. And that's even with an iOS update, like a phone update that happened to Apple, mostly phones. I think it maybe was about last year or so. And it made an update, and the downloads are a lot lower than what they were. It's just an update that they did. But even with that, we are at almost 750,000 downloads, which means that there are thousands of you homeschool moms or prospective homeschool moms that are out there listening to every single episode. And I just want to say thank you. It is not lost on me that you take the time to hit play and you listen, and I get to hopefully speak some wisdom. I pray before every single episode that God just gives me the words. I'm not perfect. I'm going to fumble. I'm not going to do everything as well as a perfect person, because I'm not perfect. Only Jesus was perfect. But I seek to glorify him, and I seek to, through that, to encourage you to begin and continue this wonderful race that he has called you to, this calling, this ministry. I'm going to say it's a ministry. Your homeschooling and the home education and your motherhood is a ministry. And I say that word because it was probably about a month ago or so, put out a weekly newsletter. If you're not on that list, go ahead and check out the link in the show notes. But I got a reply back from somebody. I don't know if maybe they were a new subscriber. And they said, "You lost me for good at ministry." And that was it. That's all it said. And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm thinking to myself, did I, in that weekly email, did I endorse a ministry or something that I forgot? I don't know. So I go back and look in the email. And at the top, there was a little bit of information, a blurb about Little by Little Homeschool Conference, which is actually happening in just a couple of weeks. If you haven't gotten your ticket sales close on October 8th, and the conference is on the 18th. But in that, I said something about, it just mentioned ministry of homeschooling. And I was like, okay, well, if that lost you, then okay. We don't see eye to eye on why we're homeschooling, and that's okay. And I was like, okay, well, don't let the door hit you on the way out, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I've unsubscribed from people that I just not getting much from, and we're just not aligned. That's okay. But anyway, so that's why I definitely wanted to add ministry. If you are here as a Christian homeschool mom, or at least you're okay with the fact that I'm going to bring God into this, then you are more than welcome to be here. But if it's not your thing, that's okay. I guess it wasn't her thing. And I heard years ago, Instagram, somebody had posted, and I think of it every single time, because people were like, well, you lost a follower or something. And somebody said, and I hear it often around in these circles of social media and sharing and stuff. It's like, this is not an airport. You do not need to announce your departure. It's okay to just go. But I am thankful that you are here. Thank you for 400 episodes. Now let's get into today's topic. Welcome to Little by Little Homeschool Podcast, where we talk anything and everything homeschool and all that encompasses the homeschool lifestyle. I'm your host, Leigh Nguyen. I'm a mom who never intended to homeschool, and suddenly I am here, 14 years later, with 2 homeschool graduates and 1 more to go. No matter where you are in your homeschool journey, Little by Little Homeschool seeks to empower and encourage you to carry out this amazing calling of home educating and discipling your children. It's not always easy, but I'm here to walk alongside you because I promise that these years are worth all of your effort. Grab that load of laundry that needs folded, settle in at a kitchen sink to wash those dishes, or tie up those walking sneakers, and let's get into today's topic. Spoiler alert. Don't turn this off after I give you this spoiler alert, but I'm not going to give you specific times when it comes to how long it should take to homeschool your elementary age child. I know, that's a little disappointing, but guess what? It's a very quick Google search, and you'll probably find multiple different opinions, and that's why I'm not going to give you a specific number. I'm not going to tell you you need to spend 60 minutes, or you need to spend 90 minutes or 2 hours, because I don't know your vision or your goals for your homeschool. I don't know your individual children. I don't know what they are capable of, but you do. So that's why I think it's really difficult for somebody to say a specific time frame. I think those time frames can be good suggestions. And you could say, I'm just going to throw this out there. They're saying, oh, for a 6-year-old, an hour. Okay, well, your 6-year-old is a little bit less mature than maybe other 6-year-olds. So an hour is going to be a bit too much. Or you might have a very mature 6-year-old who will sit there for 2 hours, maybe even straight. And so why cut things short at an hour? So it's really knowing your children and understanding that the time that is spent on it will increase. Once you get to the high school years and a child is spending hours a day, it's not like they just suddenly are doing hours a day. It slowly has just been added on. So the answer to that question of exactly how long it should take is multi-layered. So here's some information that I want you to consider when you're trying to figure out how long it should take. So obviously, homeschool is going to take less time for a 5-year-old than for, say, a 10-year-old. And I'm focusing today on elementary age range because I think that most of you that are listening have at least one child, if not all of your children in that age range, or they're younger, and that's your focus right now. I feel like by the time we get to high school, we kind of know how long it's going to take, and we should have gotten to the point where you, as the homeschool mom, you're not taking 4 hours to do homeschool with your, say, 16, 17-year-old. They might be, but you shouldn't be because they should be independent at that point. You are kind of guiding them. And again, it depends upon the child, depends upon the maturity of the child as well. And it depends on, have they been homeschooled all the way through? Or did you suddenly bring home a child from school who's really used to their hand being held and now suddenly you have a 16-year-old and you have to teach them how to become independent? So again, there's a lot of nuance and there's a lot of just kind of gray area to that and you have to figure it out. But we're going to focus on elementary age. And then you can use this to kind of gauge for if you have lower children that are in lower age or an older range. So again, it is multi-layered. And I think that we have to remember also when we say how long does it take in elementary school, it doesn't have to be straight hours. So let's go back to before when I was saying, for example, maybe an hour for a 6-year-old. Does that mean that the 6-year-old is sitting there for an hour doing worksheets? Maybe. Maybe that's what your child wants to do. Or maybe it's an hour over the course of 3 hours, and it might only be a total of 5 minutes that they're sitting there doing any type of worksheet because the rest of the time is just active learning because that's where your child is at that time. And that is also maybe what your vision is and what your goals are for how you're going to home educate your children. So again, this is going to kind of run the gamut of ages, and I would say a lot of the questions come into like, well, how do I do this when I have multiple children? Most of us have multiple children that we're homeschooling, and there is just one of us, and we're trying to figure out how long that is going to take. So how long should it take is really up to you, but time typically is added on every single year. It might only be adding on another 15 minutes. And then that also, how long does it take? That should include your family style learning, the things that you're doing together, as well as their independent learning on top of that. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of what I did so you can pick and maybe glean from some things that I learned, some of the things that I had to maybe learn the hard way and maybe save you a little bit from that or maybe just confirm. How cool is it when you hear what somebody else does and you're like, oh, that confirms kind of what my gut was telling me and what I've been trying to do and how I thought that I wanted to do this. So brought our kids to oldest home and really had to find our way. I felt like I was groping about in the dark, didn't know much about homeschool, didn't know the freedom that I had in homeschool, but encountered pretty quickly when we started out, wow, it's not going to take 6 hours for them to do their schoolwork. And I was like, so why would I spend 6 hours with them? They don't have to be, in air quotes, doing school from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. just because that's what they did the previous year in the public school. That doesn't mean that's what we have to do. And so when it came to how long did it actually take them during the elementary school years, we did a combination of the family learning together and when we would do that, even if my 4 or 5 year old, the youngest is 4 or 5, and the other one's a little bit older, there's 5 years between them. So maybe 5 years old and then up through 10 years old. The 5 year old would still stick around for the family learning. Again, it'd be okay. I'd be okay. Play with Play-Doh, cut some things with scissors. I know that it makes a mess. I know. Makes a mess. But at that age, sometimes kids like really love scissors, safety scissors. We don't need them cutting off any fingers or anything, but cutting up paper and just finding stuff to kind of keep their hands busy. And then sometimes he would just kind of wander off and go play in his room a little bit and come back. And that was okay with me. We have to understand that there's grace. And when you're in those years of intense with the homeschooling and you're wondering, like, how am I going to do this? What am I going to do? The youngest, I feel like they're getting shafted. They're not getting a lot of attention. They're not getting a lot of the homeschool lessons. There will come a time for them. Focus on the oldest. Then the next, then the next. Now, you might have a whole gaggle and have 10 kids. It's going to have to kind of trickle down. But if you have 10 kids, most likely that oldest one is probably at least a teenager. And so you've gotten to that point where they're more independent and then you're focusing maybe on a couple that are in the middle age range, but just focusing on the oldest, knowing that there will be time. So for me with the 3, I knew that there would be time. And the time came, and then it really came when I graduated my second one a year early. So there was already 3 years between them. So basically all of high school has been my youngest with just me and him. I mean, for better or for worse, right? He gets all of mom's attention. But this is the time that I feel like I can make up for those younger years when I felt like I wasn't giving him as much as I should be giving him. Again, there goes that word should, what you should be doing. I was giving him enough, and now I'm able to give him one-on-one attention because the other 2 are done and graduated, and so he just gets me. It's kind of a little bit of a joke, but we're having a lot of fun, and we've done a lot of really great studies and books, and it's been really good. So just know that if you feel like your youngest is not getting enough, there will come a time where then they will get more focused attention from you. They'll be in that age range where the other ones are older, and they will get that. So for me, we would do our family style learning, and then we would do our lessons. My goal was always to be done by noon for me. Now, in high school, my kids would have to go a little bit sometimes past 12 noon, and then that was just completely independent type of work. In elementary school, sometimes they would have to go past noon, but that was probably because they were not being cooperative during the hours of my focused attention on homeschool. And so maybe you want to call it like detention or something, and you have to stay after school and get some work done. It was just, I was like, well, if you're not going to cooperate right now, you're going to time out for right now, or you're sitting there just staring at your math worksheet. You only have 10 problems to do and you're going to sit there and stare at it for an hour. Well, you're going to be doing it after lunch. Like it needs to be done where you could have the time to do it right now and you should have done it right now, but instead you're being resistant. And sometimes you have to maybe there's a heart issue, maybe there's just something you have to get to, but there are going to be some consequences to things. So most of the time in the elementary age range, they were definitely done by noon and I wanted to be done by noon too. I had things to do. There's still a whole household. There's a lot of things that have to happen, or at least I wanted some quiet time, some downtime. And so we would start somewhere between 8:30 and 9 a.m. It depended upon the year. As they got older, we would start a little bit earlier because they would be up and had more that they had to do. And so for them, they also wanted to be done at noon. And so therefore, we need to start a little bit earlier. We would start with our family learning at 8:30. Sometimes during those older I know we're talking about elementary. I know the title's elementary, but sometimes at the older age range and even later elementary age range, if they were up, they would be fine. If they started working on their independent work before we began doing our family learning, our morning time at, say, 8:30. Maybe they're all ready. Breakfast was done and cleaned up, and they're all ready for the day at 8. They sit down and work for about 30 minutes on their independent work. A lot of them like to do that. So they could definitely be done and maybe even done before 12. But me personally, I was like, I need to be done by that time. So that's how we kind of did it. And during that time between, say, the elementary age range, I think it was usually about 9 a.m. to 12 noon. We would do our family style learning, our morning time together. That would sometimes last about an hour. And then those next 2 hours from about 10 to 12, it would be me kind of bouncing around. So elementary age range, I would often want to get the youngest one done first. I would maybe get the older two, get them set up with something. I'd say, here, start with maybe your spelling or start with your math, whatever it was that they could do independently. And then I would sit and do a lesson with the youngest and then jump around and then let them do some independent play or independent, maybe working on some handwriting, something I could do that I could kind of keep an eye on them as well, and then do a lesson with the other one. A lot of bouncing around. I didn't have a set schedule of like, it's your time for this and then your time for this. It was just kind of like, these are the goals of what I want to accomplish. And some days like, okay, we'll see how this goes. Some of the days did not quite go according to plan. Maybe it was a rough night of sleep. Something happened, who knows what. And we would kind of have to adjust a bit. But how long should it take in the elementary school years? I think that it's helpful to set a start time and that it's helpful to set an end time and to make those realistic and understand that maybe you say 30 minutes for my 5-year-old and somewhere between 9 a.m. and 12 noon, they get those 30 minutes done. It might be 5 minutes here, 10 minutes here, or it might be a straight 30 minutes. Again, it's really knowing your child and taking a look also at that day and what's going to be best for this day. Is it best just to do a 5-minute little lesson, let them go play for a bit and call them back? Or you're like, if I let them go, it's going to be hard to get them back and to do the next lesson. So it'd be better if we just did our straight 30 minutes and then they would go ahead and be free. So then what should your elementary age children, not students, well, what should they do when the time is up, when they are done with that? So say it's after 12 noon, or maybe they're done by 10, 11. What should they do? Well, I think the number one thing they want to do is play. And I have no problems with that at all. But I think we need to balance that with chores and household responsibilities because you're all there making a mess. It should not be them doing school in the morning and then them playing on their own all afternoon while you are working tirelessly and are exhausted because you're the one that's doing all of the cleaning, the vacuuming, the dusting, and the cooking and the sweeping and the mopping and all the things. Your children, all the ages, I would say from even 2 years and up, 2-year-olds, they can go ahead and carry some toys here and there. There's always something, but when you start when they're younger, it's not a big deal to help out and to clean up. You remember the Barney song? You guys might be too young and your kids, or maybe you listened to it when you were growing up, the Barney song, like the clean up, we would kind of sing that and put on some music and get some of the chores done. But it's very important for kids to participate in that. If you're unsure what kind of chores and what you want done in your family, I do have the Tidy Home, which will walk you through setting that up, which can very easily be fit into your homeschool days. You guys can do it in the afternoon. You could do a bulk and say one day of the week we are doing some intense cleaning and getting it done, or we're going to spread it out throughout the week. I kind of show you how to set that up and give you those options. So when your kids are done with school, they should have definitely plenty of time to play. That's their job. It's a much better job than sitting in a school under fluorescent lights for 6 hours. So play is also how they learn. And I am a huge proponent of letting kids play for as many years as they want to. I have no problem with 12, 13-year-olds still playing. I mean, obviously 14, 15, they're still going to play. It's just going to be different. Maybe it's basketball and stuff like that, but let them play. Even my 16, 17-year-olds, I would say they would sometimes be playing, but not necessarily with, toys and that kind of stuff. It's just a different type of play. I think it's really good for kids to have some type of quiet time that they are able then to be okay with being by themselves in a quiet atmosphere, whether that's reading or quietly playing. And then also they should have time to spend on their own interests. Maybe it's not just play. Maybe the play is coupled with they're really interested in art and they have time to do some arts and some crafts, or maybe it's taking things apart or it's exploring outside, but it's combining that play and that interest, making sure you get your chores done. And I think it's important also to make sure kids have time to just be by themselves and be able to kind of quiet themselves down and be okay with being alone. Before we close out, to celebrate 400 episodes, if you could take just one quick minute and leave a rating and review for Little by Little Homeschool Podcast, I would so greatly appreciate it. So the rating is when you leave stars, hopefully 5 stars, hint, hint, and a review is when you actually write something out and let me know what you have enjoyed about the podcast, some type of encouragement. I would just be so thankful for that. And guess what? It helps to push the podcast out so that new homeschool moms can listen as well. Thank you for being here for this episode, and thank you for listening to all the episodes for however long you have listened. So here's to 400, and let's say 400 more. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If it was just what you needed to hear, would you do me a favor and share it with a friend? And if you would like to connect more, social media links and more are in the show notes just for you. I promise to see you back here real soon.